Peoples of the worldwide federated internet. What's good? All right, so as promised yesterday, I got to a portion of the book of Exodus, chapter 4, where we had a very strange occurrence, and it seemed to appear out of nowhere. And I watched a bunch of videos where some different people had different things to say. What I'm going to make an attempt to do is get to what the Bible says, even though there could be different inferences and meanings and double entendres. I want to stick pretty much surface level at this point just to kind of understand what was going on. Because really, if you were paying attention when I got to this portion in yesterday's video, it appears that it came out of nowhere, but it didn't really. So anyway, without further ado, Exodus chapter 4, and we're going to pick up at verse 23. So let's get into this. All right, verse 23, and God is talking to Moses, I believe Aaron and the elders. He's letting Moses know the message that he wants delivered. And we're going to pick up in verse 23. And I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. All right, clear enough, right? Nothing crazy going on. Then boom, out of nowhere, in verse 24. And it came to pass by the way in the inn that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. When I read that, I thought, hold up, back up, wait a minute. God came to Moses. God was patient with Moses. Moses tried several times to get out of this. He wanted no part of it. He did not want to be God's messenger. He was afraid to go down to Egypt. You can speculate why he was afraid to go down to Egypt. And I said, I believe it was because he was fearful for his life. And I think you could actually prove that from the Bible in the instant where God explained to him that the people that sought his life in Egypt were now dead. So that was clearly something that Moses was worried about. That situation is gone, out of the way. Moses came up with the excuse of, well, what if the people don't believe me? God took care of that. Then Moses said, well, I'm not good at speaking. God took care of that. Sending him down, Moses is on his way, and now God seeks to kill Moses. That came from me out of nowhere. Now you read the next verse, and it says, then Sephora took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So right after you're told that God sought to kill Moses, the next verse, Sephora circumcises her son, throws the foreskin at the feet of Moses, and has some choice words for him. Why did she do that? I'm convinced reading this, and like I said, you can look up different videos, and just type the question into YouTube. Why did God seek to kill Moses? And different people have different explanations. A lot of men, way more studied than I am. I'm taking a simplistic route, not really going too deep, because there's a lot I don't understand, and I try to keep it as simple as possible when I'm reading my Bible. Okay, so she circumcises her son, throws the foreskin at Moses' feet, and she says, "You're a bloody husband." She's mad. She's angry at this point. I think this is the whole reason why God sought to kill Moses, and I'm going to explain. All right, so that word sought obviously means to seek. The Hebrew word there is bakash, and it means to seek, require, desire, exact request. All right, so I want to go back first. I want to take you back to the book of Exodus, chapter 2 and verse 22, where Gershom, which is the firstborn son, the son that's being discussed here, was born. And she bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Egypt died, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. So Moses' son Gershom is born, and there's a length of time that is passed in between that birth and when this happened. The cry of the children of Israel came up to God. And so we know there's probably quite a length of time between him being born, God appearing to Moses in the burning bush, and sending him down to Egypt, to the children of Israel. Now remember, Moses is going to be the one that brings the law of God to the children of Israel out of Mount Sinai. Moses is the one God is sending down as the deliverer to the children of Israel. He's the one that God gave the instruction what to say to Pharaoh. All of these things are being done through Moses. All right, so now I'm going to take you back to the book of Genesis chapter 17 and verse 9 through 14. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. So God is saying, the covenant that I'm giving you, Abraham, you're going to keep, and all your generations after you are going to keep. And God is going to express to Abraham how serious he is about this thing. Verse 10, This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. Right? So this is, without question, this is what you're going to do. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. This is the sign of this covenant between me and you. And this is going to be carried out from Abraham to his seed, to his seed, and so on and so forth. And he that is 8 days. So God has given him specific instructions on how this is supposed to be done. In many ways, this could be seen as one of the first laws given, so to speak. Not the first, because there was other commands that I believe God gave Abraham before this point. But and he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations, he that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. So not just the people who are born of your seed. If there's any stranger among you, if you bring someone into the fold, into your house, this is to be done to their male children as well. God is not joking with Abraham about this. Verse 13, he that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised man child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. God was so serious about this that he says, if this is not done, whoever doesn't have this done, this person should be cut off from his people. Period. I'm dead serious about this. And this is supposed to be done the 8th day. Did Moses know about this circumcision? I believe he did. I believe Moses was taught these things. I believe Moses knew these things. Why wasn't his son circumcised on the 8th day? We know he wasn't, because we see that a length of time was passed between the birth of Moses' son and him being sent down to Israel to be their deliverer. Moses is on his way, and God sought to kill him. So things are not mentioned here, but there you can definitely make some good assumptions based on the context of what we have. What assumptions can you make? Right, the fact that Sephora, God sought to kill Moses, and in the next verse, Sephora circumcises her son, and it says, then Sephora took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. God must have appeared to Moses and said, I'm going to take you out because you have violated my covenant and you have not circumcised your son. There was probably a plea made by Moses to God on his own behalf. God, let me fix this. And God gave him that opportunity. Moses probably went to Sephora, told Sephora what was going to have to be done, and she was having none of it. Now, the son is older. Now, not to get graphic, but to all of you listening, the private area of a male is very sensitive. Especially, you got to think this is a young boy, but he's older. He's definitely not 8 days old. This had to be excruciatingly painful for this young man, which I'm sure further enraged Sephora. But this was so important that Moses must have pressed on her that without question, you will do this. This is going to happen. I would imagine there was an argument back and forth about this. But nonetheless, Sephora did it because Moses knew, you're going to do this or God is taking me out of here. And I wondered, and I didn't, this thought didn't originate with me. I was listening to something some other people said. So what I'm about to say next is not an original thought. I wonder if this is because Moses is going to be the lawgiver to the children of Israel. So if the lawgiver himself is not even holding to the covenant given to Abraham that was supposed to be passed down from generation to generation, how would they then listen to Moses if he didn't even keep the covenant of circumcision? This was a big deal. Remember, in the book of Genesis, such a big deal that God said, if this is not done, you cut that person off. Now, you can make your own assumptions about what cutting, the soul off from his people meant, whether it meant banishment or something else. Irrelevant to this point. This was so serious, Moses had to get this resolved. It was a what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember the word, but it was do not pass go. And we see that because in verse 26, the Bible says, so he let him go. Then she said, a bloody husband thou art, because of the circumcision. She was mad. Her son was in excruciating pain. I'm 100% positive this was super painful. I don't know if they had any kind of numbing agent at this point. Maybe they did. I can't assume that they didn't. But even with that, this would have been super duper painful, especially for an older young man, right? A young man that was older than 8 days old. This young man was, let's say he was 5 years old or 6 years old. For a mother to have to put a 6-year-old through that much pain, oh, I'm sure she, in no uncertain terms, was she a fan. She did not want to make this happen, but it was so serious that if this wasn't completed, Moses was out of here. I promise you, I've read through this several times. I saw this verse, and I want to say the first time I read through that, I had some thoughts about it, but didn't really take the time to come back to visit it. So that's, as I said yesterday, I wanted to come back and visit that because this was important. It was important enough that God was about to take Moses out of the picture because of this. This is kind of crazy that it was that serious. But again, we see how God deals with people and how God sees certain things. If you remember in the book of Hebrews, the Bible talks about believers and it talks about judgment, because a lot of believers have this perception that because God is merciful, because God is gracious, that God will never exact judgment. That's a false belief. In the book of Hebrews, the Bible says it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Man, what a statement. Y'all know what it is. Stay frosty, people.